As Aika pressed onward into the darkness, the faint glimmer of torchlight danced off the damp stone walls, casting eerie shadows that seemed to shift and twist with each step she took. The air grew thick with the scent of must and decay, a tangible reminder of the forgotten secrets that lay hidden within the depths of the dungeon. With each passing moment, Aika felt a sense of anticipation building within her chest, her heart pounding with excitement at the prospect of what lay ahead. The echoes of forgotten realms whispered softly in her ears, guiding her path through the twisting corridors and shadowy passageways. As she delved deeper into the dungeon, Aika encountered a series of challenges that tested her strength and resolve. Ancient traps lay hidden beneath the moss-covered floor, their mechanisms rusted and worn with age. With a steady hand and quick reflexes, she navigated these deadly obstacles, her keen eyes scanning the surroundings for any signs of danger. But it was not only traps that stood in her way. Along the way, Aika encountered a myriad of creatures that lurked in the shadows, their eyes gleaming with hunger as they stalked their prey. Some were twisted abominations, their forms grotesque and monstrous, flesh hanging off their bones like tattered rags, emanating a putrid stench of decay and death. The mere sight of them sent shivers down Aika's spine, filling her with a primal sense of dread. Others resembled creatures from legends and nightmares, their presence equally unsettling. One resembled a ghastly amalgamation of human and beast, with fur-covered limbs and razor-sharp claws that glinted in the dim light. Another appeared to be a spectral apparition, its form ethereal and translucent, as if it were not truly of this world. With her heart racing and her senses on high alert, Aika did all she could to suppress the overwhelming urge to flee. Terror seeped into her soul, and dread clouded her vision, but she knew escape was impossible. Monsters lurked behind her, surrounding her on all sides, their menacing forms blocking any hope of retreat. With shaking hands, Aika reached for the dagger at her side, her fingers trembling with fear. The weapon felt cold and unfamiliar in her grasp, its weight a stark reminder of the perilous situation she found herself in. But she knew she had no choice but to stand her ground, to face these otherworldly foes with all the courage she could muster. As the creatures closed in, Aika's mind raced with thoughts of survival. She scanned their twisted forms for any sign of weakness, her eyes darting from one foe to the next as she sought out vulnerabilities in their defenses. Every fiber of her being screamed at her to run, to flee from the horrors that surrounded her, but she knew that to do so would mean certain death. Summoning every ounce of resolve within her, Aika squared her shoulders and braced herself for the inevitable slaughter. In the dim light of the dungeon, shadows danced eerily across the walls, casting grotesque silhouettes of the monstrous creatures that encircled her. Their twisted forms seemed to ripple and writhe with every movement, flesh sloughing off their bones in a grotesque display of decay. As they drew nearer, pieces of their own decaying flesh littered the floor, leaving a trail of gore in their wake. Aika's stomach churned with revulsion at the sight, bile rising in her throat as she struggled to maintain her composure. Stepping gingerly over the rotting remnants of their bodies, she fought to suppress the overwhelming urge to retch. The air grew thick with the stench of death, a putrid miasma that hung heavy in the stagnant air. Aika gagged against the foul odor, her senses overwhelmed by the sheer horror of her surroundings. With each passing moment, the monsters drew closer, their malevolent eyes fixed upon her with hungry anticipation. In that moment, Aika knew that she stood on the precipice of oblivion. Either she or they would meet their end in this forsaken place, torn apart by the ravenous hunger that burned within their twisted hearts. The odds were stacked against her, a lone girl facing down a horde of nightmarish abominations. But still, as fear threatened to consume her from within, something primal awakened within Aika, a raw, feral instinct that transcended rational thought. With a guttural roar that echoed through the cavernous depths of the dungeon, she launched herself at the creatures with reckless abandon. Her eyes blazed with a fierce determination, tears streaming down her dirt-streaked face as she unleashed a torrent of savage fury upon her enemies. Every movement was a symphony of chaos and violence, her body moving with an otherworldly grace as she danced through the fray. She cared not for the pain that lanced through her limbs with each blow, nor the blood that flowed freely from the wounds that marred her flesh. All that mattered was survival, the primal urge to fight tooth and nail against the encroaching darkness that threatened to engulf her. As the creatures closed in around her, their grotesque forms twisted with decay and malice, Aika's senses were overwhelmed by the stench of death and decay that hung heavy in the air. Pieces of their rotting flesh fell away with each movement, leaving a trail of putrid slime in their wake. With a primal scream, Aika lunged forward, sinking her teeth into the nearest creature's flesh with a sickening crunch. Blood filled her mouth, metallic and bitter on her tongue, but still she bit down harder, refusing to let go even as her vision swam with pain. The creature howled in agony, lashing out with its claws in a desperate attempt to dislodge her, but Aika held on with a vice-like grip, her teeth tearing through muscle and sinew with terrifying efficiency. With a final, gurgling cry, the creature fell limp at her feet, its lifeblood pooling beneath it in a dark, viscous puddle. But there was no time to celebrate. More creatures surged forward, their eyes alight with hunger and fury as they closed in on their wounded prey. With a fierce battle cry, Aika launched herself back into the fray, her dagger flashing in the dim torchlight as she fought tooth and nail against the encroaching horde. In that moment, she was no longer a girl fighting for her life in a forgotten dungeon. She was a force of nature unleashed upon the world, a primal avatar of survival in its purest form. And as she fought with every fiber of her being, she knew that no matter the outcome, she would go down swinging, a testament to the indomitable spirit that burned within her heart.